I've got some more Lost Battles out here. This is by Fifth Column Games, designed by Dr. Philip Sabin. And I've got the Battle of... I've no idea how to pronounce it. It's first Charonea, I think, or Charonea. Charonea. It's a battle that I've tried from the Great Battles of History series. It's in the Great Battles of Alexander set that I've got. I've played it in there, and I have to say the Great Battles of History version I found somewhat disappointing. And that's rare for me to say that, but you can see a Macedonian army, the Macedonian army on the right here at this point in time. I believe, if I remember correctly from the Great Battles of History write-up, that this is Alexander the Great's first significant battle, and there he is, the great man himself. He is only rated an average leader in this battle because he's very young still, and his father Philip is there. He's an inspiring leader in the centre there with some veteran heavy infantry. Alexander's got some veteran heavy cavalry that he's attached to. The Greek army that they're facing have no leaders at all, and that is, in this battle, pretty much the difference in the point values, which are significant. But the Macedonian army has a point value of 83, and the Greek army has a point value of 61. So there's 22 difference. 18 of that is accounted for in the leaders, 12 for Philip and 6 for Alexander. So you can see that in terms of actual troop quality and type and so on, there's only 4 points difference in this game's version, but the leaders add 18 points to the Macedonian side. So yeah, the Great Battles of History version of this game, of this battle I should say, I found a little disappointing because the map has a river. You can see a river on this board here, but the map has a river that runs pretty much straight down the centre, and the armies start on either side of it. And unfortunately, there is that creates a disincentive for either side to attack. Why would you wade through the river, take all the cohesion hits, only to be there sitting ducks with those cohesion hits on you for the enemy to attack you as you try and get out? And they've put, in the Great Battles of History version, they've put steep banks on some of those rivers as well that make them even more difficult and cause even more cohesion hits. So the problem there is that there's not much incentive to be the one that takes the cohesion hits, because there's no benefit to you. Why should you be the one that you know, handicaps yourself? Is that the smart thing to do? Absolutely no, it's not. And the game doesn't incentivize any other reason for attacking. You know, your job is to rout the enemy, you know, enough of the enemy that they reach their route point limit. That's it. So there's no reason to advance at First Charonea and Great Battles of History. Unfortunately, there's no incentive, and therefore I found it a very strange game to try and solo, because the only reason to advance is you think, hey, I've got the Macedonians and Alexander the Great and Philip, and the Greeks are a bit crap in terms of their leadership, but that's all kind of, you know, benefit of hindsight decision making rather than actual decision making of what's in front of you on the battlefield, and I didn't find that very satisfying. Here that problem is solved in two ways. Firstly, because the Macedonians are already sitting in river tile areas, which gives them a penalty to combat and a bonus to people attacking them, and so want to leave these quickly. So that will be prompting them to advance into these clear hexes like this, rather than sitting in river and marsh tiles here and so on. And also, this game features a handicap points value bonus for the side with the lower points value. And as we've already discussed, the Greeks have 61 and the Macedonians have 83. And the side with the lower gets 3 times the difference in victory points at the end of the game. So if everyone just sat here and said, no, there's no incentive to moving, the Greeks would get 63 victory points for that, which would probably be enough to hand them a handy win. I haven't done the calculations, but it would certainly mean they were doing Perfectly fine, thank you very much. So for them, you know, scaring this Macedonian army into not advancing is a victory, and so the onus is on the stronger side within this whole system to force the issue. That is not the case in GBOH, and I think it's slightly the poorer for it. Anyway, here we are. So the side on the left, the white side, which is the Greeks, have the first activation here. They have a points value of, like I say, 61, which gives them 6 commands. We're coming into turn 2 because turn 1 is the deployment turn to reach these positions. And now it's up to them to decide what they want to do. If we run across the board then, you can see the terrain. We've got the river and swamp and marsh and all kinds of stuff, which is nasty to be in. We have got a hill here and some light infantry back here. We've got a hill here, and that means that I don't think the Greek army is feeling any great desire to go rushing into this swamp area, but it is their key zone, so they've got to defend it somehow. That's something of a conundrum for them. They don't really want to advance into here, but if they don't take it and let these guys advance into there, then okay. In the centre here, they probably do want to try and advance forward, and because they'd love to catch these phalanx units in the marsh and swamp. Likewise here, and over here, I don't think the Greeks want to be charging their cavalry into marsh and swamp. So I think what they want to do is hold this hill, advance in the centre, advance onto this hill and use it as a kind of disincentive for the Macedonians to occupy this marsh, because then they'll be fighting uphill out of marsh with light infantry on their flank. So we'll try and prevent them from doing that, and we'll see what we can do in terms of challenging the phalanxes in the centre. That's the plan. I'm not going to go through it activation by activation. I'm just going to drop back in as things move forward. Okay, here's the Greek position at the end of their activation. They've done exactly what I said they would. We've moved the light infantry up to take this hill. We've kept our infantry back on this hill. We've pushed forward in the centre, and we've kept our cavalry here behind the river and marsh. In other words, we've done our best to occupy all the good terrain and leave the Macedonians all the terrible terrain, and we'll try and make the best of it. So now it's up to the Macedonians to force the issue somehow and decide where they want to take risks and where they don't. So they have 8 commands with their fighting value of 80, or their army value of 83. So let's see what they can do. Back here then, we're in the Macedonian part of turn 2 in Lost Battles. First Charonea, and it's really interesting coming back into this game having taken a break from it, because I reread the rules and really sort of retaught myself the rules, but also building on what I understood already, and I'm just seeing lots of extra little nuance, little subtleties, little things that maybe I got wrong, little things to add into my understanding. This game's just growing on me. I really liked it before. I'm liking it even more now. Anyway, the Macedonians pushed forward in the centre here to get out of the river. Alexander with the cavalry's just turned it to face the enemy, but didn't actually have enough actions to get into here anyway. Probably wouldn't have come into here even if he had the actions, but he didn't have the actions. The Macedonians have got more orders than they know what to do with. They've used, this cost 2, this cost 2, this cost none because Alexander gives them 2 free, and it cost them 2 to activate. It cost them 1 to swing their light infantry round with a free facing change and then move them forward to face off against the light infantry up here. They've got 3 orders left, and Philip gives them 4 free activation orders worth of activations in there. And so the really interesting, difficult question. Hello. Yeah. The one of my cats deciding to play. The difficult question for them is whether Philip wants to advance into the marsh stream hex here, and then be facing off against a big group of what's this heavy infantry, hoplite infantry, uphill out of a river. One of the things I think I got wrong certainly in one of the previous playthroughs, is attacking into or out of water hexes, whether they're stream, river or sea shoreline, is it halves the attack value, which is the width of units allowed to attack in or out along an edge. So the attack value in this game, in this scenario, is 4. You can see light infantry would count as 2, these would count as 1, these veterans here would count as half. So, 4 would normally allow, that would be 1.5, 2.5, 3.5. So all these could attack, or you could attack with that and those 2, and so on. Into and out of this hex would cut it down to 2, which would give the veterans something of an advantage against the units here. Philip's, leadership would come into play in terms of activating for free and allowing attack bonuses. So pushing in here has some merit. On the other hand, if they lose this light infantry battle and then they're flanked, is that good? I'm not sure. It does take the enemy key zone as well, which could be important in terms of driving them from the field, costing them morale in terms of army morale. So I think I've just talked myself into this, in that Philip is going to take the bull by the horns and go for the no guts, no glory option, push forward. He won't have enough, they've only got 1 action, so he won't be able to make an attack, but it looks like they're going in. So let's do it, and then that will be the end of turn 2, and we'll be on to the Greek turn 3 to see how they react. Okay, I've done turn 3 here at first Charonea, and the armies are just sort of clashing. That's my phone pinging. The armies are just sort of clashing, and you get these kind of situations where there are groups of troops sort of engaged, but no one's it's not clear what the outcome's going to be, which is pretty cool. But the Greek army getting slightly the better of it. So in the centre here you can see these Greeks against these Macedonian phalanx Greek hoplites here, and you can see they've only got 2 spent units, and there's 4 over here. Only 1 fresh unit in here facing 3, and of course once all your units are spent, any hits you take shatter units, and that's when morale checks and bad things happen. So yeah, and in here only 2 fresh Macedonian phalanx now, compared to 3 Greek hoplites. So the hoplites actually giving as good as they get, or slightly better here in the centre. And a standoff between the light infantry down the far end, neither side able to do anything. And in here, although the light infantry and a unit is spent, in here we've got the light infantry and a veteran hoplite spent, but the river marsh is halving the attack limit in there, so that's preventing Philip from really exploiting his what should be a sort of qualitative advantage in there, because the attack limit's so small, and attacking up a hill doesn't help him either. Down on this flank, Alexander has been forced to push up into this area to try and engage the cavalry, to try and make something happen. He again has our advantage of having veteran infantry, which means he can get 2 attacks out of here, whereas the halved attack limit in here means that only 1 of these average heavy cavalry will be able to attack. Once and this is just here to soak up the hit that might come, and then he'll lead the charge himself. That's his plan. But it's on a bit of a knife edge, because the Macedonians really have to hope that their centre holds for long enough for Philip and Alexander to make a difference. So we're coming into turn 4. Greeks with 6 commands, and they will be putting in an attack here for 2, an attack here for 2, an attack here for 2 and then rolling their dice and hoping to get enough commands to attack elsewhere. So yeah, the problem that they've got is that they could roll a 1 on the extra commands and not be able to attack all the way along the line. So let's but they'll definitely be opening up in the centre here with their commands and to see what they can do. I might even throw in where in this zone here it might even be worth throwing in 2 commands for an attack bonus to really try and knock this area out and shatter the Macedonian centre. In fact, let's do that first. Let's do 2 commands to knock them down to 4 to activate this area and allow everyone to attack, and then let's do another 2 commands to give the lead unit an attack bonus, and go from there. Well, I just rolled that out and the Greeks just came up short in this attack. So the after putting those 2 commands into an attack bonus for the lead unit, so he had a +3, needing a 9 to hit, he rolled a 2, and that was terrible. The Greeks then arranged themselves so some average hoplites could be supported by some other unspent average hoplites, and just had to do an all-out attack in order to cause a hit, and that caused the last Macedonian unit to become spent, and then they had 2 flat rolls from some spent units that couldn't support or have any other bonuses, and rolled 2 7s and weren't able to put the final hit in that would have shattered a unit and prompted morale checks. So they've just come up short, but it's really on a knife edge now. The Macedonians are going to have to go some to break this Greek centre in time. So now we're going to spend 2 commands and see if we can get anything rocking here. And again, we haven't got enough command. Well, I can now roll for our extra command, so let's see what that roll is going to look like. We've got a 3, that's pretty poor. So the Greeks are going to run out of commands here. They don't have really enough commands now to they don't have enough commands to activate an attack with all their units down the line now. So they've got 3 zones. This one here they could activate with 1 command and just attack with 1 unit, because that 1 unit's all they can attack with anyway, and likewise over on that side they could attack with 1 command. So I suppose they could activate for 1 command in here and just attack with 1 unit. So they might have to do that, but they haven't got enough to throw in attack bonuses. So here what they're going to want to do is lead off with this hoplite, and then they're going to want a fresh hoplite being supported by another fresh hoplite for the extra bonus that gives, and then they're going to want an attack with with 2 other hoplites. Doesn't matter whether it's the veteran or not. There's an attack limit of 4 out of here, and that'll be 4. They could go 3.5, but it doesn't make any difference. So they'll have their lead hoplite, who will be attacking, fresh lead hoplite attacking with a +2, a supported hoplite attacking with a +1, and then 2 flat rolls, and they've got to try and get 3 hits in here. I'll see how it goes, but I'm not going to roll all the dice on camera. Well, I said I wasn't rolling them on camera. The first roll is an 11 with a +2 for the lead hoplite, takes it up to 13, needing 9 to hit. That is +4 or above, and what that means is he's done 2 hits to the last 2 Macedonian phalanx here. So that one's shattered and spent, and the other one comes into the line and then gets spent. They're all the same, so I'm just flipping them over like this. And what that means is that the Greeks now have a +1 attack and 2 flat attacks, needing 9s, and if they get any hits at all they will shatter a phalanx, and that will prompt morale checks and problems. So I will roll them on camera. Here's the one with the +1. He's got a 5. And then 2 flat rolls. First one is a 5, and their last roll is a 5, and again they have just come up short. You can see the Macedonian army is absolutely hanging on here. Everything spent across, from the phalanxes that have crossed the river and now run into these units, and it's touch and go. Massively touch and go, and this is the tension that this system generates, you know, very, very rapidly. It happens in great battles of history as well, beautifully. Happens in both systems beautifully, but it happens very swiftly here. So now the Greeks have no other really dangerous attacks to do, and I think I said I'd put one order into each of these zones to see if they could do anything. So I'm just going to roll these out and then come back. Well, now the Greeks really are getting things their own way. They're getting the better of all these engagements, and the light infantry just shattered the opposing Macedonian light infantry attacking downhill with a +2 on the dice, rolled a 10. Became spent for an all-out attack. Did 2 hits. Light infantry was the only thing in there, so they're not screening, so they can't minimise the hits down to 1, and that was all she wrote. That means a morale check for the Macedonian army, and they roll essentially a d3. They get a 6. That's an army morale of 3, and they're not going to have any problems. There were no other units in the area that was shattered. There's no modifiers on the army morale currently, and even though they have some spent units in the centre here, that's still only going to drop them to a morale of 2. So they're not going to have any morale trouble at the moment. So we move on to the attack out of this hill. It's going to cost a command. There's just going to be 1 unit. And they're going to be attacking Philip's actual veteran infantry here. And so if they take a hit, Philip is then allowed to make a rally roll to prevent it. And this is another one of the subtleties that I missed in my initial play and leading of the rules, and maybe it's because I didn't have these leaders. So that generals are divided up into 2 types, leaders and commanders aren't attached to units and leaders are. And there's a subtle difference in that if you've got a commander in an area, he can only make rally attempts on units which are already spent to try and prevent them from becoming shattered. But leaders aren't restricted like that. Leaders can make rally attempts to prevent hits on their units, and in fact if it's their guard unit, the unit that they're attached to, taking hits, then they must make that rally attempt. So there are these little wrinkles and subtleties in the rules that give it a lot of flavour, and which I really like. I love the nuance that creeps into the system, even though it looks like 2d6 and a to hit roll. Actually, there's enough in here to give it real subtlety. So there's going to be an attack roll into Philip's veterans there, and then we'll see whether. Let's just make the roll. I can't carry on talking. See if this matters or not. Okay, they get an 8, and I think that's going to be enough for a hit because they are, they're a lead unit, and their average hoplites. So they're a lead unit for a +1, and their fresh hoplites attacking heavy infantry, that's +2. But they are a lead infantry unit attacking downhill, that's a +3, and then they are lead heavy infantry attacking out of hill, so that's back to a +2. So they've got a +2. 8 + 2 is 10, and that's enough to cause a hit. So they are going to cause these units to become spent, and now Philip is going to have to make a rally roll, and this is obligatory because it's on his units. So he rolls 2 dice, and he needs a 9 or better to rally with no modifier, and he gets a 4, and he just avoids becoming injured himself. I need to check what that 4 does, whether that causes, because there's another thing called I think it's a close shave or something. Well, let's check that while I'm on camera. Rally attempts. So leaders must try to rally hits on their own guard unit, which they've done. You needed a 9 or more. Yes, we know that. If he rolled a 4, which would mean average or uninspired commanders killed or wounded, but he's an inspired leader. Okay. So 3 inspired or brilliant leaders suffer a close shave, others killed or wounded. So no, a 3 would have been a close shave for him. A 4, he's fine, but he hasn't managed to prevent the hit on his own guard unit. So that is now spent. Okay. So now we've got one last command down in here. Let's throw some dice. It should become fairly clear whether it's a hit or not, and a 4 clearly isn't. And that's the Greeks done. They're doing pretty well here. Let's see how the Macedonians can respond. So here at Charonea, the Macedonian line's getting thinned out now. You can see phalanx is now missing from here and from here. They're up to 4 shattered units. There've been army morale rolls for the Macedonians, which they've passed, and they're all still fighting, but they have got their work cut out here, and they've got a light infantry unit turned onto the flank of Philippo over here and started attacking out of those hills, and the stuff in front of them, unbroken, unspent units there. This area has got spent units in it. This area still has unspent units, and Alexander over here has done a number on the Greek heavy cavalry on this flank and is likely to finish it off in a minute, but will that be enough to turn? Will it be quick enough to turn the battle, or is the Macedonian centre simply going to collapse? And that's what looks like is going to happen. I think Alexander will finish this off, and it's possible, although the water and marsh and hill makes it very difficult to make progress here. So it's too slow. I think it looks at the moment like the Macedonians are going to be relying on making really good army morale rolls to hold as their centre disintegrates. But they are the ones with it's down to 7 commands now, but they are the ones with the ball in their court to make some attacks. So yeah, decisions to make for them. But I think it starts here, wiping out this cavalry, and then they'll go on from there. Obviously, they want to make an attack into here where there are all spent units and try and shatter things in here. See if they can get the Greek morale to crumble. But at the moment, the Greeks only have 1 shattered unit, which is the cavalry that came out of here. And so there's probably still quite a bit of resilience on their side before their army really starts to suffer. Yeah, so now into this Macedonian turn. Let's see what they can do. Well, it all suddenly went wrong for the Greeks. The Macedonians attacked and knocked out their other cavalry unit, and then chipped away at a couple of hoplites in the centre, and they got 1 on their army morale, and with 4 shattered units that was reduced to 0, and 0 on your army morale suddenly looks rather precarious. All the hoplites in that area then decided to rout, and then the light infantry nearby, because they didn't have a bonus of being heavy infantry, routed, and then that prompted more heavy infantry in their own hex to rout, their own zone, not hex, to rout. And suddenly, from looking like they're monstering it, the hill is still held by 3 good order hoplite infantry. The light infantry up here that was flanking has routed. This zone's been lost. They've got some good order, one good order on fresh hoplite in here, and no cavalry. So, you know, they're holding out on this hill against Philip's attack quite well. But other than that, that's all they've got left on the board. They've got 28 army value left, and that's 2 orders. So their turn is going to be pretty quick. It looks like they're going to attack here first because there's fresh units up here. So yeah, they'll attack into here first and see if they can't prompt the same kind of collapse in the Macedonian line that they themselves have suffered. So let's give this a go, see what happens. Well, attacking hills out of rivers in this system looks like a fool's errand. It's never worked for me in the previous battle, and it's not working here. The Greeks managed to rout the remains of the Macedonian centre here. So you've got Macedonians here facing that way and Greeks facing this way, cavalry down in this corner. But Philip had led a charge up this hill with his veteran heavy infantry, and so they were then the lead unit, and they were spent, and they got attacked, and he wasn't able to rally them, and that shattered the infantry, the successful attack against them, and Philip is now in the withdrawn area over here. That prompted an army morale check, which had a -2 because they've got 6 shattered units, and you get -1 for every 4, and a -1 for the general having been, for Philip having been withdrawn, a -2. This is a D3 roll, so they rolled 1 army morale, and their army morale overall is -1. And this is where things get very, very bad indeed, because, for example, all these heavy infantry go up to 1 go up to 0 for being heavy infantry, and then back down to -1 for being spent, and they all rout. So this entire section in here, for example, routs, and that's not good, to say the least. And in here, well, -1, the light infantry doesn't even get +1 for being heavy, clearly, and it has another -1 for being spent, and he's on -2, and he routs. This guy here, he's on -1, +1 for being heavy infantry, -1, he routs. This guy here is on a -1, +1 for heavy infantry is 0, +1 for being veteran is 1, and -1 for being spent, and he's on a 0, and stuff in here has panicked, so he routs. And this guy here is on a -1. He's heavy infantry, so he's on a +1, takes him to 0. He's not spent, so he stays on 0, but other units in the tile have been shattered or routed, or panicked, so he routs. And then this guy here, he's on a -1 army morale, he's a veteran, puts him on 0, and he's heavy infantry, puts him on 1, he's unspent, he has a morale of 1, and he's staying on the board. Over here, these guys are going to be all right, firstly because none of them are spent, secondly 2 of them are veterans, and thirdly they've got to bring they've got a commander with them, and oh no, only a brilliant or inspired commander will give them a +1, but they are 3 or more tiles away from the tile under attack, so 1, 2, 3, 4, so get a +1 from that, and so their morale well, I best check that because they're cavalry. So the army morale is -1. These 2 are veterans, so they'd be up to 0, and they're not. And they're 3 or more tiles away from the currently under attack tile, so they'd be on morales of 1. This guy Army morale -1. He's not a veteran, so he's -1. He's not heavy infantry, he's still -1. He's 3 or more tiles away from the tile currently under attack. That puts him on 0. And he's not spent, so he's on 0 and nothing else in there is panicking. So he's fine. So we have a situation now where the bulk of both armies has left the field, but it looks like the Greeks have done pretty well here. I think they're going to win handsomely when this all shakes out. I'm going to have to do some calculation to see how many command points or how many fighting value the Macedonians have left, but it's not going to be much. I'll come back in a bit. In fact, I think, don't you stop the battle at 3 or 4 units? I'll have to check when the battle ends as well, because it might be that the Macedonians don't even have enough left to continue fighting. Okay, well, with so few troops left on the board and very little chance of them actually engaging each other in a meaningful way, I decided to call it a day at the end of the Greek turn 6, with the Macedonians still with the opportunity to do things, but what are they going to do? I mean, stuff can just keep shuffling around and avoid contact with this cavalry by and large, at least for the turns needed. And yeah, and a solitary veteran heavy infantry over there is hardly going to storm up that hill and do anything meaningful in terms of points. So just decided to call it a day, and it's a massive Greek victory. The points for withdrawn, spent and routed units 43 to 37 in the Greek favour. The rout bonus point for routed units 10-7 in the Greek favour. Shattered units 38 to 24 in the Greek favour. And for being by far the weaker side points wise, 22 points worse off, they should get 66 bonus points, but that's capped at half the value of the opposing armies, so they only get a mere 42 bonus points for that, but it does leave them with a score of 133 to 68. And because of the difference in the points values, the victory threshold, the point at which you have secured a major victory, is 18 points, and they are 65 points ahead. So an absolutely shot heard round the world kind of victory. This a kind of mind-numbing victory for the Greeks here, holding the field in numbers again and completely blasting this Macedonian force away. And the legend of Alexander the Great never happens because for the Macedonian sort of hegemony in Greece and unification, it's just suffered a major possibly catastrophic blow here. So there we go. What should we do then? I'm feeling like I must have fucked up the Macedonians really, really quite badly here, and I'm fancying setting it up again and seeing if I can figure out a better course of action for the Macedonians than the ones they took. So yeah, I think I'm going to do that. Whether I'll film it or not, though, is another matter. It feels like this has gone on long enough and I ought to just stitch it together and upload it.